Hi guys, and welcome to the CPFC podcast with me, your host, Alfonso Greenbrook. Today in pod 11, I'll be looking over the result over Norwich City and we'll be discussing the match, player rankings, my man of the match, as well as hearing from Pardew and what he had to say after the game. So let's begin. Jason Puncheon picked the perfect time to score his first goal of the season as his wonderful strike finally ended Palace's 15-game search for a league win against Norwich City. The winger curled the ball into the net from just outside the box in 68 minutes to provide the game's one quality moment and clinch a crucial point for Alan Pardew's men in their bid to avoid the drop. A sharp blast of the full-time whistle was greeted with a sigh of relief from all the home fans inside Selhurst Park who had waited since December to taste a Premier League win and live the doom and gloom in SE25. The first 45 minutes were a tugged affair, with both sides looking nervy and unable to create a clear-cut chance. Showing the effects of their winless run, Palace started slowly and allowed Norwich the better of the opening play, with Johnny Howson testing his luck from 25 yards out, but fizzing the ball just over the crossbar. But midway through the first half, the Eagles slowly began to make an impact in the final third, when they forced a corner which Yannick Bolasie lofted towards the back post for Scott Dan, but his looping header was easily caught by John Ruddy. The Canaries continued to put pressure on Palace, and Stephen Naismith volleyed goalwards following a good cross from right man in Bakobi. But unfortunately for Palace, Dan was well positioned to block from close range. That was as good as the first half got, and the second half started in familiar fashion, but Palace nearly found a way in front, and again it was from a set piece. Bolasie sent a delivery into the area, which was fractions away from the head of the incoming Mile Jednak, with also Dan unable to turn home the loose ball. Puncheon then weaved some magic down the left and got to the byline to cut the ball back to Bolasie, but he screwed the chance well over. But on 68 minutes, he was the man who finally produced the moment of quality that the game had been crying out for. Joe Ward found himself in possession 25 yards from goal and slipped in the winger, who took a touch to create some space and then brilliantly whipped the ball around Ruddy into the far corner to register his first strike of the campaign. Invariably, there was a response from Norwich, and Hennessy was quickly forced into a good stop when he dealt with a snapshot from Beckham-born Gary O'Neill. But the game had burst into life, and substitute Wilfried Zaha nearly got on the score sheet when he flew down the flank, cut inside and shot low, but Ruddy was equal to it. That proved to be the case. A few minutes later, Zaha pounced on a slip in the Canaries' defence to go 1-on-1 with Ruddy again, but again the keeper beat away his victorious blast with 11 minutes remaining. The goalkeeper found himself in the Eagles' penalty area twice in the dying stages as the Canaries threw people forward desperate for an equaliser, but it wouldn't arrive as the 15-game winless run finally evaporated. So now to move on to the player rankings. Like I say every week, if you do have a different opinion to me or you just want to say something about the game, just drop a comment below the video so obviously we can discuss your opinion and also so other fans can see what you thought of the game. So to start with Wayne Hennessy a 6. Hennessy didn't have a lot to do, but he didn't look comfortable with the ball in the air and got away with a drop and a poor punch. So that's really a rating for him. But in the second half, he was a lot better. Obviously, that was sort of the first half, he weren't as good. But the second half, he was a lot better. And he actually made a really crucial save, a fingertip save at 1-0 to make sure we could keep the clean sheet. So, although he had a bit of a shaky start and he had a shaky game in general, wasn't really good in the air, he was able to make that brilliant fingertip save, obviously to deny Norwich the win. And that was what we needed really. Now to move on to Joe Ward, who had a really good game, one of his best games he's had for Palace in a long time, and so I'm going to give Joe Ward a 7. So it says another typical Joe Ward performance really, solid and reliable as usual. So generally in the last few games hasn't been really good, but this is his standard, this is how good he is, and you know, quite an average performance from him. But I think a 7 quite good because he had a solid game and was hardly beaten down the left. Obviously very solid defensively as well as getting forward, and he also had a say in the winning goal because he made a through pass to Jason Puncheon, who obviously scored the goal. So a really good game from Puncheon. He was really good defensively as well as, you know, getting forward and obviously getting the passes, which he done. Obviously passed to Jason Puncheon. Also, I just think he was, I don't know how to explain his performance, but he was a very good performance. He was over average, let's say, than he's been in the last few games, and that was really good. And that's the sort of same with most of the Palace team. They were playing a lot better, you know, this game, whether it was because we were playing a game that really mattered, or whether it was just because the players actually thought, well, let's put in a really good shift, let's show why we should remain in the Premier League. And, you know, Ward is a classic example of that. But once again, lovely runs down the left-hand side for Joe Ward, lovely passes, and also that crucial pass he made. Now to move on to Scott Dan, a 7. Dan had a decent game despite the odd moment where he struggled against Umbakobi. So obviously Scott Dan, you know, what more do you expect of him? A 7 is more or less what he gets every week. A lovely solid performance from Scott Dan, and although in the last few games his sort of standards have slipped slightly, you know, he hasn't been playing that well, but actually this game he played really well. As usual, a good aerial threat. So when we're getting the balls in, when we're getting the corners in, the crosses, he's able to get on the end of them. Obviously, he didn't score, but he had a few chances that went just wide from a header. So playing well in that sense. And also, he's not the fastest player, but he was able to deal with Umbakobi. And I think that's how you pronounce his name, Umbakobi. But I think that he dealt with him very well. Obviously, you know, making crucial blocks as well as tackles and stuff like that. So a good performance from Dan. I think that deserves him... it makes him deserve a 7, which I think is perfect to his performance. And that is sort of a brilliant performance, which we would expect of Dan. That is the sort of average performance he normally gives. Now to move on to Damien Delaney. Now, I don't know, he's been really good in the last few games, scored the crucial goal. And I'm going to give him a 7, actually, to be honest. And Delaney shouldn't really been called a foul for foul Matt Jarvis, which, you know, admittedly could have been a penalty. But I'm not saying this as a biased person, but if that was given against us, I'd be quite angry because they were both running for the ball. And obviously the ball went in front of Matt Jarvis, and obviously Delaney went to go and get the ball as well. So they knocked each other over. But really, not a penalty. That's my opinion. They said that on Match of the Day, so it's not exactly biased. But maybe it could have been a penalty. But other than that, he was absolute brilliance as usual. Lovely link up with Scott Dan. And I think here it was a typical performance where he grinded out throughout the whole game. So obviously he's one of the oldest players in the squad, 34 years old, but he's able to grind out really top quality Premier League standard defence, him and Scott Dan. So really good performance from Damien Delaney. And actually, considering his age, he didn't look out of pace. So although he's not the fastest player, he didn't look out of place by his speed. Now to move on to the left back or right back, because obviously him and Joe Ward changed throughout the game, and that is Papa Soiree. So Soiree lately hasn't really been playing well. He's had sort of odd games, but today, or I say today, Saturday, he played a really, really good game, and I'm going to give him, Papa Soiree, a 7. Now it says here, Norwich didn't pose much of a threat, so Soiree was able to get in, or get up, and go in support of Balassi, and he did that quite often, and that's something that we talk about most weeks. It's actually with Soiree, although he's a defender, he's got very good attacking attributes, and that's what we need of a player with him. His agility, his ability as well, because obviously as he's able to get forward, when we're on the counter-attack, he's able to support the likes of Balassi, Zaha, Sacco, Wickham. He's able to get forward and get in the crosses so that they can run inside and get ahead on it. So a really good performance from him, and also, as you would expect of a full-back, he was able to get back defending. He made some crucial blocks. He made some lovely tackles as well. And all round, he had a really good game. And actually, considering he has had a few dodgy games recently, this is sort of his stand. This is his best ability. This was probably his best game in a very long time. Very good quality he was playing. And it's the same with most players. This is probably one of the best games, say, this half of the season. And you just proved by their performance they were playing absolutely sublime football. Now to move on to, obviously, Johan Cabaye. So I'm going to give Johan Cabaye a 7. And some people may disagree with this because he may have had a slightly off game. But he did look off the pace in terms of battling for the ball. But his use of the ball was fantastic. And, that is, what we'd expect of Johan Cabaye. And that's his usual self, obviously, finding passes, doing that. Now, obviously, where Puncheon was playing as the cam role, he was a slightly more defensive role, but, he performed this with a calmness to his game. So really, what more can you expect from Cabaye? An average performance, not one of the best from him, obviously, where he's playing more defensive, but what you would expect of Johan Cabaye, the class he's got, and also is just, I think every week I say this is his passes. His passes are superb. Finding the space, finding players in space, getting in crosses, linking up with the people like Soiree so that he can run forward, get into the space, pass the ball to someone like Soiree for him to cross it in. So that actually he's linking up really well with other players. He wasn't really as good as getting the ball, getting the tackles in, but when he had the ball, he used it effectively and obviously was able to pass it or cross it or use it effectively. And he did have a few set pieces, but we didn't really have a shot on goal. He just sort of chipped it in the area, so you can't really judge him on that. And so, yeah, that's Johan Cabaye. Now for Mile Jednak, who is actually one of the best performers on here. And I think this may be the first time I'm giving this rating. I'm actually going to give Mile Jednak, an 8. It was one of his best games in a very long time. And actually, he's one of the hot contenders for the man of the match, which I'll move on to. But it says here, the skipper had a very fine game. He marshalled the troops well and gave an excellent protection to the back four. He also won a lot of the aerial challenges. And that's something we can always rely on Mile Jednak for. He's a good commander like Delaney and Puncheon. He's always talking, he's always shouting, making sure everyone knows their role in the team. Also, obviously, where he's playing a sort of defensive role, he's able to give lovely, perfect cover to the back four, so there's not too much pressure on them when Soiree and Ward are going up on the counter-attack. And also, where he's a really good player at headering, he won loads of challenges in the air, same as Scott Dan, and had a really, really solid performance. And I don't think there's really more to add to that, because he didn't really do I was going to say he didn't really do much in the game, but he done quite a lot in the game. But there's not much to explain because the things he done were absolutely sublime, as in, the aerial threat he posed, his talking, his commandment, his passes, aerial threat and stuff like that. It's not really a lot of it, but when he has the opportunity, he is absolutely fantastic during this game. And that is why I think he actually deserves this rating a lot. And I think that's fair on him, and loads of other people thought that. I don't think he really much to say, and actually, I think a word that can describe his performance is actually a warrior, and he's a very hard player in that sense. He's very defensive, he puts in rough tackles, he, goes high, jumps high for the aerial threat, and I think a word to do it, he was the foundation of the result, I suppose, because it was crucial that he was just standing in front of the back four just to make sure that they were secure and we couldn't leak in goals. So I suppose that really describes it. And just one word to describe his performance as a whole, forgetting the warrior bit, the foundation bit, is a star man. And I'll go on to talk about him when I give my nominations for man of the match. And now to talk about the man of the moment, Jason Puncheon. So obviously, being out injured, came back last week and actually had a sublime performance against West Ham. And you know what? He replicated it with that fantastic goal on Saturday. And that's why I'm going to give Jason Puncheon a 7. So obviously he scored the goal, but Mile Jedinák's performance was top-notch. But Puncheon, good performance. Not quite up to that standard yet. Obviously back from injury, but a 7 is very fair. Now it says here, Puncheon didn't have a great first half, and he missed the chance to put Palace ahead. And obviously that was from a lovely cross, 6 yards out, and he wasn't able to control it. But never mind, because he grew into the game after that. So obviously having the chances, he went in for half-time, had the team talk, and then grew into the game afterwards. And then his strike is just, I think the word I used on Twitter was, it's beautiful. And it was fantastic strike. It was a fantastic strike. Like I said, it was beautiful. It was an absolute beautiful strike. Hit it with his foot, obviously, left foot, and then it goes into the bottom. The bottom left-hand corner. Absolutely really good strike, and actually the strike was outside the area. So a really good performance from Puncheon, and we could just see him going back to his normal self, coming back from injury. And I think I'm reading this here, and it says, what a strike from the winger, and that is just emphasising his strike. It was a fantastic strike, really well taken with his left foot into the left corner, and obviously a crucial goal. And it also says here that there's no way that the keeper can save that. And also, Also, it meant so much to him scoring the goal. You see the emotion in his face. He was crying when he scored. It meant so much to him. And that is what you want from players. And people talking about lately that teams like Aston Villa, they're just players. Same with Newcastle, they're just players. They're not playing for the team. But Puncheon clearly showing that he's playing for the team. He don't care how much money he's getting. He's playing for the team. He was crying, for God's sake. It meant so much to him that he scored the goal. And he said afterwards the game how important the goal was. And he felt that himself. So I don't think there's much more to say, because I was so happy when he scored that. And I was happy for him as well, because he hasn't really, played well this season. But I was so happy for him, and he showed it in his emotions, how much it meant to him and how crucial it was to the team. And I think that's another reason why he's got a high rating, because the goal he scored was really crucial. Now to move on to Sakho, who had one of the weirdest performances, I suppose. There's always a weird performance in a game. I'm going to give him a 5. Now, he did see in the first half, he did see quite a lot of the ball, a fair amount of the ball. But his crossing, unlike in the West Ham game, his crossing wasn't really up to standard. And it was no surprise that he was replaced just after the hour mark. And people were surprised that he was replaced then. They wanted him off at half-time. But like I've said in past videos, people who want to sack Pardew, it's a wrong decision, because he makes decisions like that, tactical changes that make an ultimate impact on the game. So any Pardew haters out there, that is one of the reasons why you need to support Pardew. Now, obviously, he did grow into the game, I suppose, after a while, just as he was, getting ready to get substituted off. He was growing back into the game. But like it says there, his crosses weren't really up to standard, and he weren't really the best player on the field. But, he'll be disappointed with his performance, the fact that he had the opportunity again. But, we can always rely on him to be an impact sub if need be. So there you go, there's Bakary Sakho. Now to move on to the next player, and we'll discuss him. Now, Yannick Bolasie. So, very interesting player indeed, and this rating you may think is slightly low for a player of his ability, but I'm going to give him a 6. Now, it says Bolasie used the ball better than Sakho, but still wasn't as dangerous as he could be. Now, Sakho did have a very bizarre game, but Bolasie did play considerably better than Sakho. So you may be thinking it's only one rating lower, but to be honest, Bolasie did have a good game, and he did get some decent balls into the box. Obviously, one of them, Mile Jednak, almost headed into the goal. He did also have a chance to score in the first half, or in the second half, sorry, when Puncheon chipped the ball in and he was denied from 6 yards out. So, a pretty good performance, average performance from Bolasie. Not, what we know he can be, but, he's still putting in the boxes, making these runs, linking up with players like Soiree, and also still having shots on goal, which is what we want of a player of his ability. And towards the end of the game, he was taking long shots, which I think that actually is probably his speciality, as well as crossing, because he's got such a powerful shot that could win us games. But really, not the best performance from Bolasie, but not the worst. An average performance from him, and hopefully he can improve in the next game. Now for Dwight Gale, who basically talked about quite a lot in the media recently. Pardew's talked about him as actually the best natural goal scorer in the squad, and I have to agree with that, really, because whenever Gale plays, his goals are not fantastic, but they're very accurate, powerful, and they go where they need to go. Because, players like Wickham, his shots are very accurate. They're not from far out. They're spectacular goals. Whereas Gale, they may be, maybe always tap-ins, but the fact is his tap-ins are very accurate and powerful, and that is what you want of him. But I'm going to give Dwight Gale a 7. Now, he worked tirelessly throughout the game, winning free kicks, obviously, where he's a small person. Obviously, he will get pushed over quite quickly. And also, considering he's a small player, he's holding up the ball in front of really, really tall players. 6 foot, he's only about 5'7", maybe, I think, maybe even less than that. And he was holding up the ball against some sort of 6'4", maybe, defenders. So, we can expect him not to win the ball, but he was able to hold the ball. And he didn't really get a chance to grab the ball. Obviously, we did get quite a lot of crosses in the area, but where he's smaller, he can't really get on the end of them. But, he was creating them chances. His attitude and also just his playing ability were actually really good, top class throughout the game. And you can't really fault him for much. And some people may think he had a bad performance because he didn't really have a sort of massive impact on the game. But considering he's just come back into the squad, so he's just got to build up his match fitness, I thought it was a very good performance from him. The right attitude for a player who hasn't been playing, trying to keep their place in the squad. And also, he didn't have many chances, but whenever he did have a chance, he took them well. So, what we would expect of Dwight Gale. And we're just going to see now who plays on Wednesday night. Now to move on to the substitute, Wilfried Zaha. Now, last week I was talking about how Dwight Gale was the impact sub. And you know what? I'm going to use that word again. As I said, I don't use it often, but I'm going to use it this week for Wilfried Zaha. And I'm going to give him an 8. And I'm going to call him the impact sub, because he had a really, really good impact on the game. He came on as a sub, and straight away he had an impact, obviously, hence the name, and was able to run down the channel, pass the ball around to Ward, obviously passed it to Bolasie, and then eventually the ball got to Puncheon and he scored. Now it says here, Puncheon looked much, much better when Zaha was replaced by Sakho. He was immediately involved in the game and was denied a goal by a good save by John Ruddy. And as I said in the match review at the beginning, he had, in the last sort of 10-15 minutes he was on the pitch, he had 2 powerful shots where he cut inside, and they were saved by John Ruddy, only by the feet of him. But if they had gone in, we could have won the game 3-0. And they were really, really good strikes from Zaha. And like I said, the ultimate impact sub. And some people may think that, he hasn't been playing. Well, he wasn't playing, so of course he's going to add a bit more energy. But like Gale, he had the right attitude. He came into the game. And like Pardew said, Pardew told him to go win the game, my son. And he definitely won the game for us. And, he gave Palace the spark as such, to get the goal. And hopefully, he's done enough to keep his place. And considering that Sakho's been a bit off, on Saturday, maybe it will give Wilfried Zaha a chance to get back into the squad and maybe, have a more impact. But once again, he came on as a substitute. Last sort of 20 minutes, he was running down the channels, getting in crosses, obviously, cutting inside, having shots. Also, the lovely passes, he was doing 1-2s, obviously, to get the ball to Puncheon eventually. So, a good solid performance from Zaha. Now to move on to another substitute, Joe Ledley, a 6. Now, some people may disagree with this, but normally I wouldn't give ratings for people who are on the pitch for less than sort of 15 minutes. But Ledley, dude, considering he was a bit more, he came on sort of the last few minutes or so, last 15 minutes, he couldn't really have a massive impact as he's a midfielder, as a defensive midfielder. But he did replace Puncheon, the goal scorer. We don't know whether Puncheon's injured, but I don't think he's injured. I think he just came off because where he was on fire so much, he was so emotional. I think that's probably why Pardew took Puncheon off, just to rest him for the next game. And hopefully he can make an impact in the next game. Obviously, 15 minutes ago, he took him off and he just sort of helped shore up the midfield as such, just in front of the back four with Jednak, just making sure we didn't leak any more goals and that they couldn't come up us. And, he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't do much at all as, last few games. But he just, like I said, shored up the defence, made sure they couldn't get in. And obviously, ultimately, that meant we ended up with the clean sheet. And, Joe Ledley, I think he's probably one of these subs we can rely on just to shore up the defence, just to make sure, that it's tight. And also, another thing with him, last week he was really surprised that he got up quite far forward because he got the ball, he was making runs. And just the same there, he was making runs in the last sort of 15 minutes, getting forward, passing it to Balassi or Zaha so they can cross it in. Now to move on to the final substitution of the day, and that was Connor Wickham. Now, obviously, Wickham coming back from injury, and hopefully, he only had, late minute. He was only on for like sort of 5-10 minutes. So, like Ledley, you can't really rate him, but I'm going to give him a 6 because he did have an impact on the game. And obviously, 10 minutes he was on the pitch, but his presence allowed Palace, to get on the pitch get up on the pitch rather, because his hold-up play was really good. And that's something we like of Connor Wickham because he could have had a penalty. But he is one of these players who's against diving. So when he's getting grabbed by the shirt in the box, trying to defend the ball, hold up the ball, he's getting pushed and tugged, he didn't go to the floor. And, he could have won as a penalty. But, we after what's happened this season, throughout the season, about controversial penalties, we're not going to moan about it because we did ultimately win the game. But, he is a player who's totally against diving in football, and obviously that showed today. On Saturday, people pulling him, pushing him, and he didn't go to ground. But yeah, only on for 10 minutes. So didn't really have the best presence. But the thing you can remark him for is actually for holding up the ball, making sure he didn't go to ground under these challenges, and also all you can wait for him. His passes are very good. So say when he's making a run, he may pass it out to Balassi so he can get forward. He's very good at running. And also, just link-up play in general, he was really good at. So they are the player rankings. Like I said at the beginning of the video, if you do have any comments, any opinions about the game in general, or about the player rankings, don't forget to comment them below so that me, myself, and other fans can see your opinion and maybe discuss it. So there you have it. That's my match review and player rankings. Now for my man of the match. So this week, as we did win the game, there were actually so many good performances, and I would normally get the results from my Twitter poll or another Twitter poll online. But obviously, as there were so many good performances, you can only put 4 people on a Twitter poll. So I did do a poll, and it did only get 9 votes, obviously, as my channel and Twitter page are growing. But I did have to narrow it down to 4 players, and only 9 people voted, so I'm not really going to take that into account. But I did get a collection of players, and I've actually managed to narrow it down to 5 players. And once again, if you do disagree with my things, or you agree, or you have another player who you think should actually be on the list for the nomination, just comment it below, and obviously I'll comment back, just so other people can see your opinion. So the nominations I've got are Papa Soiree, Joe Ward, Jason Puncheon, Mile Jednak and Yannick Bolasie. And obviously, they're my main ones, but the likes of Scott Dan, Delaney, Zaha, they also had a good game, but I managed to narrow it down to obviously these names. So obviously, Papa Soiree, reason he'd be up for it is because he had one of his best games in about 2-3 months. He was running down the channel, he was attacking a lot as well as his defensive mind. So a good performance from him. And mainly, I suppose, give it to him is because of his attacking sense, because his crosses were really good. His link-up play with Bolasie was superb. He was able to run forward as well as get back, cover and defend. And all round, one of his best performances in a Palace shirt, in my opinion. And, you know, that's why he's up for it. And also Joe Ward, obviously, playing on the opposite side to Soiree. Obviously, more or less the same thing. Obviously, getting forward, getting these passes, getting the crosses. But the main thing for Joe Ward is actually, other than his sort of main sort of solid performance, he actually passed the ball to Puncheon, to score the goal. So he got the assist. And actually, him, Zaha, and Bolasie, lovely 1-2s down the right-hand side. And obviously, Ward had the ball, found Puncheon in space, passed it to Puncheon. And obviously, Puncheon unleashed his shot. And, you know, that is why, mainly, obviously, for the passing and also just the solid performance, why I'm going to nominate Joe Ward. Also, the man of the moment, Jason Puncheon. There's no questioning whether Jason Puncheon should have been on here. Just for the goal. The goal was absolutely superb. Hit with his left foot right into the sort of, I say bottom left corner, because it's not exactly the top. So it's sort of in the middle, but then you've got to class it whether it went in the top corner or the bottom. So I'm going to say top left-hand corner with his left foot. A really superb strike, but also, like he was at West Ham, wasn't the best attacking threat, was still a very good, reliable attacking threat. And obviously where he was playing in the centre of the park, he was able to find passes to players such as Bolasie, Sacco, Zaha, who were playing on the wings, so they could whip the ball into Gale. And, you know, that attacking sense is what we would want of a Palace player. And that is, you know, Jay Puncheon finally just about getting back to his normal self before he got injured. And hopefully he can kick on his season. And like he did the second half of last season, hopefully get a few more goals, maybe score a few more free kicks so he can just expand his game. But really, reason Puncheon's on there is just for the solid performance and for the goal. Now to move on to Mile Jednak, obviously another nomination. And he actually won loads and loads of man of the matches. Loads of people were discussing him. And actually, I had an argument, well, not an argument, disagreement with some people on Twitter, because the original poll I set out didn't have Jednak on it, but I had to revise that, obviously, looking back on his performance. Actually, Mile Jednak, one of the hot runners for the man of the match, so I had to put him back in the poll. And that was the poll that people voted on. But Mile Jednak, like I said, in sort of the rankings, he was just in front of the defenders, so making sure it was solid. He was solid all game through. Also, a very good aerial threat, so obviously solid in the air as well. And also, obviously, where he's playing defensively, he can receive the ball from Dan or Delaney, run forward a bit, you know, try and find the passes. And also, he's very good at holding up the ball, so he can take on a player and go around them, you know, using his strength, agility as well. And, you know, that's what we want of him. And to be honest, that's the main sort of reasons why he's been nominated, because obviously of his defensive attributes during the game, and they obviously helped us to win the game, help us to keep the clean sheet. So, you know, that's why he would have won it. And also, my final nomination, Yannick Bolasie, and there's no wonder why he won it, because he obviously, other than Puncheon, he and Gale, he was our best attacking option. And, you know, he was able to run down the flanks, get forward a lot, and especially when he linked up with Soiree, he was absolutely sublime when he linked up with Soiree, because Soiree was able to chip the ball in or pass it to Yannick to chip the ball in. They could run across, he could cut inside, and actually, although he did get quite a low ranking, he actually had a really solid performance. And, you know, the usual, not up to standard Yannick, but, you know, a very good average performance from him, able to pass the ball around, get the crosses in, and also use his pace to his advantage. So, out of these 5 nominations, obviously, it was quite hard to pick one because there were so many other players as well. Wolf Zaha, one of them, Gale, one of them, Dan Delaney, you know, a few more names. But, you know, narrowed it down to these guys, and actually it's a really hard decision. But, you know, I've been thinking about it, looking at other people's opinion, obviously, on my Twitter poll, and I'm going to give it to Mile Jednak. Now, if Jednak happens to be listening, then well done. I can't give you a trophy, but there you go, you've won the award. And the reason I'm going to give it to him is just because we kept the first clean sheet in a very long time. we've got to give credit to Jednak because he was just shoring up the defence, making sure it was solid, obviously without us conceding a goal. But, Yannick Fosu followed by Yannick Balassi, obviously Jason Puncheon for his goal. I would love to give it to Puncheon, but other than that, his game was all right. Not the best, don't get me wrong. He did have a really good performance, but he weren't, the best. But Mili Jednak shone out for me, just for shoring up the midfield, making sure it was solid. And also, he was just really good at taking on the men and obviously his aerial attacking. So there you have it. That's my podcast review. Now we're going to listen to what Pardew had to say after the game.
Alan, congratulations on the victory. Great to see Selhurst bouncing again at the end there.
Been a long time, too long, and we might not have won this game without the fans. We did a lot of work with the media this week. I want to thank our local media publicly because they were massively important to get our fans in the mood that they were in, and that's what working with your local press can do if they're willing to work with you, which they were. So I thank them for that. We had a great start, but we didn't get the goal, and then we got nervous a little bit. Some of our play was edgy, and I think our fans, I don't need to explain to them that we was under a lot of pressure today. I felt it myself. I was nervous today, as nervous as I've ever been as a manager, and I'm not really that type. And you could sense it on the pitch. We needed something, just a moment to settle us down, and we got it from Puncheon with a fantastic goal. And then I thought we was better. Even after the goal, we were a lot better.
The goal came shortly after Wilfried Zaha came on. Do you think him coming on gave the fans a lift? Because he's a fan's favourite, and that kind of gave the side a bit more energy before that goal?
Well, Wilf's been having to carry the banner for us. And I felt in the last couple of games at Leicester and at West Ham, that had taken its toll on him. And sometimes just to sit on the bench and come on late when everyone's tired can be different. It gives you a different view, a different complexion. I said to him, go on and win it for us. He wasn't really instrumental in the win in terms of the goal, but he certainly made a big presence and, as you say, lifted the crowd. He's a great player, but all great players need to have a rest now and again. So I had to give him a lift today, coming on and changing the game a little bit. So we go to the next game and then we'll see if he starts.
Yeah, next game comes up very quickly. Is that a good thing for the team?
Yeah, because we've got a bit of a cushion now. The job's not done, of course. We got a chance to get mid-table, and I think that'll be a fair reflection of our season, really, where we excelled and then struggled with injuries and lack of confidence a little bit in certain players. But certainly that would be a fair reflection of our season, and of course we still have this opportunity in the FA Cup to create history, and that's what we want to do.
And finally, do you think the players have learnt a lot from this recent run?
Well, I've learnt a lot, and they would have too, because a lot of players have not had the experience of what happened to us, to be flying like we were, and then suddenly to get closer and closer to the bottom. It's great experience. That's what the Premier League does. All those players at Stoke and at Everton and Southampton, those first 2 or 3 years, you have a learning curve as a Premier League player. They're learning, and they would have learnt a lot from this run. Certainly, I have about them.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
As an added bonus for Crystal Palace winning their first game in 2016, we're now going to listen to the interview with Jason Puncheon.
Jason, congratulations. First goal of the season, and what a situation to score it in.
Yeah, obviously it was good to score, and obviously the main thing for us was to get the 3 points and sort of stop that rot.
Emotional celebration from you. Do you think it's one of the most important goals you've scored for the club?
Yeah, definitely. I think probably a very important goal for the club, but for myself as well, considering I haven't scored this season, which is obviously not really good for me, myself, what I'm putting the team to do. So obviously, but the most important thing for us, I think, as a whole, as a football club, was to win the game, however we done it, and I think we did that.
You pleased with the way everyone battled after the goal as well and dug in?
Yeah, I could sort of sense the way we battled, we dug in from sort of start to finish, and I could sense that we would get a goal, whether it be a little scrappy goal or something, but I think we've done that, and that was great belief from us.
Managers talked a lot before in the past about how, as the game goes on, sometimes on this run, the players have got a bit edgy and the fans have got edgy. Is it something you notice on the pitch as players?
Yeah, I would say so, definitely. I think we came out really firing after those first sort of 10, 12 minutes, it looked like, and then we didn't get that goal, and it sort of puts the edginess people give away little balls and things like that, and people start to worry about things, you know. But you just got to keep going, and I think we did that, and I think we showed great character and belief today.
Do you reckon it made a difference, someone like Wilf coming on, because that always lifts the crowd when a player like him comes on?
Definitely, you know, Wilf's a crowd favourite, and I think he did that, you know, and I think he sort of changed the game. Obviously, when he come on, he was on the front foot, you know. But I thought the skipper was really brilliant today. I think he sort of led by example, you know, and that was the characteristic we needed, you know, and just breaking up things and being really sound.
And finally, just looking ahead, rest of the season, just give us a good platform to finish the season off well.
Yeah, I think it does. I still believe in this team. I think everybody does. I think the most important thing for us is to win today and get that momentum. So we still got a chance, although people might not believe it, to better what we did last season.
So there, now you've heard what Pardew and Puncheon had to say, that concludes my match review of Crystal Palace versus Norwich City. But make sure to come back next week for my pre and post-match review of Crystal Palace versus Everton. So thanks for watching, and remember to up the Palace.
Palace,